Welcome to the Nevis Newscast for Friday, April 3rd, 2020. I'm Donis Wilkinson-Keynes. Further emergency powers COVID-19 regulations were made on Thursday, April 2nd, 2020 by His Excellency Governor General Sir Tapley Seaton under the state of emergency in St. Kitts and Nevis. The Emergency Powers COVID-19 Number 3 Regulations, Statutory Rules and Orders Number 10 of 2020 took effect on Friday, April 3rd and will run until Thursday, April 9th, 2020.
As we continue to use every effort to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus or COVID-19, every person, I repeat, every person, shall remain confined to their place of residence, inclusive of their yard space, to avoid contact outside of their family. You should stay at home except in special circumstances. If you do have to go out, the regulations require you to, and you must, practice social or physical distancing. You should maintain a physical distance of at least 6 feet in or outside of any business place that you must visit. Everyone is encouraged to wear a face mask which covers their nose and mouth.
On Thursday, April 2nd, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, made his third address to the nation on the state of emergency.
If you need to buy food or medicine, we encourage that only one member of a household leave the residence to do so, that you prepare a list of your food items and avoid unnecessary shopping and frequent visits to the supermarkets. Those of you who live in rural areas are further encouraged to purchase your food items in your local community shops and therefore lessen any congestion that could take place if you were to travel to the city center. I urge those of you who must leave your homes to do your tasks and return to your home in the quickest time possible.
Prime Minister Harris reiterated that the regulations are necessary to slow the transmission of the virus from one person to another, including reducing secondary infections among close contacts and healthcare workers.
A curfew remains in place from 7 p.m. Friday night to 6 a.m. Saturday morning. On Saturday night at 7 p.m., a full 24-hour curfew, a total lockdown, is reintroduced until Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. On those days when there is a limited or restricted movement for businesses and their employees to provide essential services at supermarkets and pharmacies, businesses should request permission from the Commissioner of Police for those employees designated by them to work. They should be given an ID and produce it if called upon to do so by the security forces to secure their travel to and from work.
Prime Minister Harris noted that the Cabinet will determine any new action to be taken based on and informed by the advice of the Chief Medical Officer, the Medical Chief of Staff of the JNF General Hospital, other health professional experts, the leadership of the National Emergency Operations, and the security forces. The Prime Minister's address preceded the announcement that St. Kitts and Nevis has recorded its 9th confirmed case of COVID-19.
The patient is a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis and resident on Nevis.
A release from the NIA's Ministry of Health states that the patient has been isolated since the onset of symptoms and remains in isolation. She is currently in stable condition with only mild symptoms.
Community health workers are continuing to carry out in-depth contact tracing and monitoring of the community transmission. We do recognize that once community transmission starts in the Federation, the ball game would have shifted. Thus far, all of the cases that we have had would have been as a result of travel-related business. In other words, they were imported into the Federation. Persons with a confirmed diagnosis of COVID-19 are to remain in strict isolation. Persons who have had a significant and direct contact with a confirmed case are automatically placed in quarantine. Please note that you are required to remain in the quarantine place for a minimum of 14 days, and persons in quarantine are not allowed to interact with anyone during those 14 days.
Minister of State with responsibility for health, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, gave the update during the Ministry of Health briefing on Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. She also advised that the Federal Ministry of Health has launched a website where persons can get information, including daily reports, statistics, and news regarding the situation with regard to COVID-19 in St. Kitts and Nevis. Visit www.covid19.gov.kn. The St. Christopher and Nevis Social Security Board will notify workers who are negatively affected by COVID-19 when payments will be made from its Emergency Relief Fund. That is according to Minister with responsibility for Social Security, the Honorable Vance Amory, who advises that the process to issue the funds is not yet complete.
This Emergency Relief Fund will pay up to $1,000 monthly for 3 months in the first instance to persons whose income has been impacted by COVID-19. Let me make it abundantly clear that the $1,000 is the maximum amount which will be paid to any person who has suffered a loss of income. Where any worker who receives a part-time or reduced hour and receives some payment, the Social Security Board will top up the amount which is received to make it $1,000 in total.
The grant will be paid to all persons who are full-time and part-time employees who have been laid off, who are employed but with reduced hours, who were made redundant as a result of the pandemic, and who are registered self-employed persons whose income is impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Your Ministry of Labor and the Department of Labor is collecting all of the information and will process all of the application forms at the Department of Labor, and those would be submitted to Social Security for final processing and payment. Let me advise that Social Security will issue when they are ready in the shortest possible time later this month, the times, the dates when such payment will be made. And in the first instance, because Social Security will not have all of the bank accounts for all of the workers so affected, I am advising that the first tranche will be paid at Social Security, but that information will be given by notice from the Public Relations Officer at Social Security.
Persons who have questions or concerns relating to the Social Security COVID-19 Relief Fund should call 667-2535 or send an email to covid19fund@socialsecurity.kn. Still to come?
For the time which we are under the state of emergency, everyone stay indoors and allow the security forces, the medical staff, and all of the essential workers to do their bit.
We'll give you the details after this break.
Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. wash your hands. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. To keep away the flu, there is one thing we must do. Wash our hands, wash our hands, wash our hands.
Welcome back. Superintendent Lyndon David is urging persons to adhere to the Emergency Powers COVID-19 regulations. Superintendent Lyndon David is the commander of the Nevis Division of the Royal St. Christopher and the Nevis Police Force.
Thus far, we have had 2 persons who were arrested pertaining to the curfew. They breached the curfew and they were arrested for that. We have 1 person who, on a 3rd time, was basically arrested. We had 41 persons who were sent back home. We are still seeing persons who wander in the streets and giving excuses that we have summed up to be irrelevant regarding the circumstances that we are currently facing.
The 24-hour curfew will be reintroduced for the period Saturday 4th to Wednesday 8th April 2020.
Once you come out of your premises, you have breached. Yes, you can stay in your yard. However, you should not invite friends to have a party. You should not invite persons to say, okay, all right, I want to buy a fence stick in a shop when the shop should be closed. For the time which we are under the state of emergency, everyone stay indoors and allow the security forces,
for the
medical
period
staff,
Saturday 4th
and all of the
to Wednesday
essential workers
8th
to do
April
their bit
2020.
to ensure that you stay safer.
Superintendent Lyndon David of the Nevis Division of the Royal St. Christopher and the Nevis Police Force. As a direct response to curbing the spread of COVID-19, the Inland Revenue Department IRD advises the public that pursuant to the provisions of the Tax Administration and Procedures Act, the deadline for all taxes and licenses due and payable during the month of March 2020 have been extended to April 15, 2020 without interest and penalties. This waiver of interest and penalties is automatic, and the taxpayers do not need to file any additional forms or contact the Inland Revenue Department to qualify. The department strongly recommends utilizing its user-friendly e-services platform to fulfill all tax obligations. In addition to the filing of tax returns and making tax payments, persons can also renew both their driver's licenses and their motor vehicle registration. The online services can be accessed via the Inland Revenue Department's website, www.sknird.com. That's it for this edition of the Nevis Newscast. On behalf of all of us here at the Department of Information, thank you for hearing.